Ralph Peters, retired Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters. This is a very bright guy, sharp guy. He was on Hannity last night. And he made a crucially important point. I wasn't aware of this, but it's a matter of basic logic if you think about it. This is only about a minute, this clip. But it's very, very important. Hat tip right scoop. Cut 8, go.
You know, I'm getting a little tired of hearing that inaccurate comment about going back to pre-World War II levels, 1940. It's actually worse than that. Because if we go back to the 440 to 450,000 troops we had in 1940, well, in 1940, an infantry division, for instance, had a much smaller tail, a little less overhead, fewer systems to be maintained, smaller staffs. That division put a lot of riflemen up front. Today, a division equivalent, the brigades, they've got this incredible and important tail, this logistical, medical, intelligence, technical infrastructure, and it puts a lot fewer riflemen up front. So if you go down to 440 or 450,000 or lower, you're going to have an army that not only is unready and incapable of fighting any major wars and even strained to fight a mid-sized
Pentagon
war.
officials
Well, let me just tell you, it's going to have less than 100,000 actual shooters in that army.
You hear that? That's the key right there. If you're down to 450, 440,000 troops, you have less than 100,000 actual shooters. Ladies and gentlemen, this is nuts. Absolutely nuts. The Army is the biggest of the military services. I can only imagine what's happening to the Air Force and the Marines and the Navy. That is absolutely amazing, is it not? Less than 100,000 shooters in the Army. Meanwhile, you know who else notices this? The Russians. The new Soviet Union. We won the Cold War, now we're losing the Cold War. Gee, what are they doing? 150,000 troops have been mobilized for war games, war training, war practicing, whatever you want to call it. And among other things, they're going to the borders, certain borders with Russia, including their border with Ukraine. And they're going to be packing a lot of firepower because they're not sending their army overseas. The army's already there. It's Russian. 150,000. Obama is provoking these confrontations because of his weakness, because of his fecklessness, and his idiot Secretary of State, Mr. Mashed Potatoes Face, who is out there saying things that he cannot back up and will never back up. We are not prepared to do a damn thing if the Russians roll into the Ukraine. Even if we wanted to. We have these rising tensions. And we are slashing and dicing our own military. And it's not just the Russians. It's China. It's the Middle East. It's the communists in our own hemisphere. We are hollowing out our military, as I've said now for years. And it's true. And our enemies and our adversaries and, of course, our allies have all noticed it. What did I say the other day? What are we going to do if China invades Taiwan? And what are we going to do if Russia rolls into the Ukraine? This president is not believable. They can make all the threats they want. They know Obama's, number one, not going to do anything, and number two, given the cuts in the military, can't do anything. So we're observers. We're basically observers to what's happening. So we won the Cold War, and now we're losing the Cold War. It's a damn shame. It really is. I don't know what to do about it at this point. I really don't. But I do know this. These cuts in our military, with all these threats all over the world and all these different forces on the move, are so irresponsible. They're unconscionable. And at the same time, we have massive spending on domestic programs and agencies. Let me ask you a question. Obama, in his new budget, is proposing $302 billion on a transportation bill over 4 years. I could have sworn federal transportation was supposed to be funded by these various federal road taxes. They were supposed to have this trust fund, the Transportation Trust Fund. Well, ladies and gentlemen, they gobbled that damn thing up a long time ago with pork and all kinds of stuff. The bill's annual price, according to Politico, would be a 38% boost over, this is how they write, the anemic $109 billion two-year highway and transit bill that Congress enacted in 2012. When do these federal highways stop, by the way? I don't even get how these people think, do you? When does this stop? Mark, maintenance. We're not talking about maintenance here. That's a small percentage of it. On the one hand, they whine on and on and on endlessly about air pollution from cars. Wow, we're going to have new cafe standards. On the other hand, they keep building these highways. But it's not just highways. They want these massive public transportation boondoggles, like the one that Jerry Brown keeps pushing in California. Absolute boondoggles. So there's one other question. So we're drawing down the military to unheard of levels, as Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters explains. Our domestic spending is drawn up to unheard of levels. And the bottom line is we don't have any money. Our country's broke. Over $100 trillion in unfunded obligations, over $17.3 trillion in fiscal operating debt. We've got Obamacare crashing down on us and all the rest of it. But don't worry, Obama has an idea. Soak the rich. You say, that's how we'll pay for the highways. Soak the rich. That'll fix it. And the rich now, anybody who earns $183,000 or more. A couple that earns about $250,000. As I said, that's your teacher and cop in many of your major metropolitan areas. Those aren't millionaires, and they're certainly not billionaires. This is crazy. So he's out there talking about $302 billion for all these road projects, but there's not enough money to have an army, a United States Army, and the kind of army we're supposed to have. And we'll slash, the PXs. We will slash pensions and benefits to those who've served and will serve. But there's always enough money for all these domestic redistribution pork projects. Always enough money. And let me tell you something. Some of you, and not many of you, but some of you out there who are naive, we need more roads. You think that's what this is about? Or do you think this is about rewarding certain constituent groups, certain unions, certain bosses? Yeah, that's what it's really about. So the military suffers. Other parts of the federal budget, they're swimming in money. They have so much money they don't know what to do about it. Meanwhile, the country's gone broke. Now, this is humiliating, and it's a disaster. And the key is what Ralph Peters said, we're going to have less than 100,000 actual shooters in the United States Army. And the Russians are sending 150,000 of their actual shooters on the Ukraine and other borders. When you threaten people, you better be prepared to back it up. I don't care if you're an individual, you're in the private sector, or you're an army. You better damn well be prepared to back it up, because you will be tested. And that's exactly what's happening here. And I don't think Obama's up to it. He certainly hasn't demonstrated it in the past. The world is watching. And the world's on the move. Our enemies are on the move. They're thinking right now, let's get what we can, let's do what we can before they have another presidential election, and who the hell knows what's going to happen. The guy's a pushover, and they know it.